You're listening to TFM.
Want to join in the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode? Join the Babel Conference, our listeners' discussion group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Hey everyone, I'm Rod Roddenberry, and you're listening to Trek FM.
Are you taking all these books? I thought I'd take some light reading. Guess I got bored.
Hello and welcome to TFM's local books and comic show, coming at you from a very different station today. It feels new and like very vibrant, and I think we're going to still just call it Literary Treks, but it's very new and very clean. I mean, somebody even cleaned up with a new green room, like Dayton's junk isn't all over the floor, which is great, isn't it, Bruce?
It is. I mean, the fact that we got one of those little, automatic vacuum cleaner things that go around, the little roving things, that has helped.
It's a Roomba.
The Roomba
made all the difference.
When I think I've now called Dayton Roomba Ward because it cleans up his mess.
Oh man! Oh, we're excited to be here, and of course, we're really excited that back with us, Casey Pettitt. Hey, how's it going, Casey?
Hello, it is good. Thank you for having me back. I'm excited to be here, and I gotta say, this place is much nicer than that rundown facility that you used for a while that you had to fix up just to then move right into the new Literary Trek. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that we can, welcome you into the new place and that you can enjoy that as we, dive into a Star Trek book. Of course, this week we're going to be talking about Raise the Dawn, which, Bruce, isn't it kind of crazy that we only have one more book in the series? Like we'll have covered everything major event-wise in the 24th century with the next book we have, which is the last one we haven't actually reviewed specifically, which is Brinkmanship. Other than that, we've either interviewed the author or talked about them all in reviews. That's insane.
It is. And I looked up just the other day, I was like, how many books do we have left? Because I know we're getting to the end. And you're right, it's just that one that's left. But it makes me want to continue reading the books that follow, even though they've already been covered here on the show. And even though I've read them before, now I'm like wanting to reread those and get into the fall and all that all over again. But I don't know when I'll have time to do all that.
No, I hear you. I just don't have lots of time for like super extra reading like that. But I was like, maybe I'll just go back and listen to those episodes. That's probably a good idea. But before we dive into talking about the book, there's just a couple things we want to mention. First, thanks so much for listening to Literary Treks. We really appreciate it. And of course, you can find us all over social media under Trek FM on Instagram or on Twitter. Of course, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. You can join Casey and Bruce and I in the Babel Conference, which is our listeners-only discussion group, and talk to listeners from all over the world. And of course, if you like the network and you do want to make sure that those things keep coming to you each and every week, all these podcasts that we do and all the content, go to patreon.com/TrekFM and see how you could be part of our team. In fact, you could even be an associate producer like Casey Pettitt. We really appreciate him supporting the network, and of course, Literary Treks along with Greg Rosier. And so again, that's patreon.com/TrekFM. And don't forget, if you really do like Literary Treks specifically and you want to help this show grow even more, go give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really does help the show continue to grow and help more people find us. So, well, guys, we're here in the sense that, there's only one thing in the news, which is the fact that the final book in the Coda series has been released today. And, well, Oblivion's Gate is out now, and have either of you guys read it already? I mean, it just came out today, so I don't know if like you guys just stayed home and like poured through it to see what happened. Casey, is that what you did?
Yeah, I'm Quentin Tarantinoing these books. I'm gonna read them in backwards order, or whatever Star Wars order you want to read them in. Since I haven't read the first two yet, but no, I have all three. I have the copy of all three of them, but I'm waiting for a good time to really sit down and plow through all of them together. I've not avoided any spoilers.
I thought you were waiting for Guffman, and I was like, wow, I don't know when he's going to show up, so you might as well just go ahead and start reading.
Exactly. No, but yeah, I'm excited for it. I've been listening to all the podcasts and the interviews with the authors and everything, so looking forward to it and looking forward to hearing you talk. I'm assuming you're going to talk with David at some point.
Yeah, in fact, we'll be talking to him next week, so very excited about that. And Bruce, have you read Coda yet? Have you read the third book?
Why, yes, I have. I got an advanced copy of it, and I read it. I devoured it. I thought about it. I got mad, then I got happy, then I got confused, then mad and happy again and sad. All the emotions. And right now I'm happy. I'm pleased.
Nice. Yeah, I did the same. I got the advanced copy and I actually read through it pretty quickly. Not something I generally do because I'm usually waiting until I'm closer to the interview, but I took like lots of notes. So I'd remember everything I wanted to while I was reading it. But I read it probably in 2 days. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give away any of my thoughts on the book at all until after we do the interview with Dayton. In fact, Bruce, it might be really interesting just to have us do our own thoughts on that series just without the authors, just so we could talk through everything as a podcast. So I think we've just decided to do another podcast. So
yeah, when you were saying you'd share your thoughts later, I was like, actually, yeah, after you interview David, we should do that. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
I think it would be a great idea, mainly just because, from the fan perspective, I love that we get to talk to the authors, but just kind of as a fan, I mean, we've been in this so long. I think that would be really cool. So, Casey, that means you have reading to do over the Christmas break. And then you can join us and talk about that. But so there we go. We've given everybody something to look forward to. But I don't know, guys. That's really all we've got in the news today, which is a pretty big news item. But how about we, raise the dawn?
Let's raise it.
Okay, so it's a very big book. Like, a lot has happened in these two books that David R. George III has given us. Plagues of Night sets it all up, and now we're dealing basically with the aftermath of everything. Ooh, the aftermath. That would make a good book series title. I wonder if that's taken. Anyway, so we are dealing with that here, and so we're going to be going straight into spoilers. So if you've never read this book, then I mean, fair game. It's been out for 10 years or something like that. It seems like these days. It's been a long time. Anyway, so Emissary no more. We're closing out the Cisco saga that started in Rough Beasts of Empire. And so, and we've been covering this extensively as we've been walking through the series because each of us in our own way has had some kind of reservations about it. So now that we reach the end and we strip Cisco of the title of Emissary by the end of this book, how do you feel about basically the resolution of everything that started all the way back in Rough Beasts of Empire?
I was not happy personally how things kind of started in Rough Beasts of Empire. I remember that just feeling like that book was fairly disjointed, which actually kind of made me a little nervous about getting into Plagues of Night and then Raise the Dawn. Once I read Plagues of Night, though, and saw how the Cisco saga continued, I appreciated it more. And I know you guys talked about that on the last, on the episode about Plagues of Night. But once we got into this one and really started to see some closure and really, seeing Cisco and Cassidy coming back together and how that went, I appreciated this story a lot more kind of in hindsight. Like, it almost makes me want to go back and read those parts of Rough Beasts of Empire again, just to see kind of how this started and how it led to where it eventually got. And I was actually fairly satisfied, with his story and the ending of his saga, the explanation of why he wasn't being contacted by the prophets anymore. And, just felt pretty good about where this all landed. Feel like he has a good place to go from here.
Yeah. I feel like Joan Rivers right now because I just want to say, can we talk? I mean, I was satisfied with the ending. I was liking how it was going, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, Sisko is basically had written himself off as he was no longer the emissary, and now it's just like official. So, I mean, I was like, okay. Well, we're already going down that path, but this whole thing of the sorrow has gone away. I'm really confused about because it's presented as if like, well, yeah, if you got back with Cassidy, you experienced sorrow, and so you did. So now it's over. So you're fine to be with Cassidy again. Did I perceive that right? I mean, can we talk?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I thought that it seemed to me to be some serious mumbo jumbo. Like, we got real metaphysical and philosophical and spiritual in this, but I don't think in necessarily the best way. The whole idea that like Sisko, time is a river that you step in and, and so by doing this thing, he had changed the river. And then, it's like, it felt like semantics, verbal semantics more than anything else. And, as we talked about last time, Bruce, I think there are better story options for the idea of the sorrow, as well as here, I think the thing one of the things that bothers me the most is that with Sisko, we just kind of strip him of the things that made him special as a character, which is that he had this connection with the prophets. We find out that he's basically prophet himself, or at least half prophet. That all of a sudden they would be like, oh no, you've done your duty and we don't need you anymore. But then we're going to create the hand of the prophets in Kira, and it's just like, it seems much more logical to me story-wise that Sisko would be the one who would continue to have the role that he's already had spiritually for the Bajoran people and through the prophets, but just have it go into a new phase. And that's why, and that would be one of the reasons that he had been whisked away to the Celestial Temple in the first place, because it's something that David never deals with in his books as to why Sisko was gone in the first place. Why does Sisko go to Celestial Temple if it has absolutely no impact on the story going forward ever? And I think for me, it's something I'm really passionate about and frustrated about. Obviously, this character is one who means a lot to me and that I love. And so to get him to this point, I felt like it was a real detriment to the character to just basically take away the very thing that had set Sisko apart from all the other captains that we had before. It's one of the big things that sets him apart, and it's one of the things that just made him very interesting as a character, having to deal with basically, especially by the end, when you find out who you are, it doesn't really ever seem to have a major impact on his life other than him coming to this like very strange, oh, I've caused all this sorrow, and it resolves itself here so we can move forward. But I feel like more that this is a place where David wanted Sisko to not be or have anything to do with the prophets in this way anymore. And so the goal was more to get Sisko to that place than actually allowing it to be something that felt more realistic to the actual character's arc from Deep Space Nine onwards. I don't know if any of that makes any sense to either of you guys or what you think, but I've talked a lot, so go.
No, I mean, I mean, I could definitely understand that. I did think it was pretty quick, I guess, how they just said, okay, yeah, like the whole thing with the river and oh, because you already did one thing that changed things and now there's not going to be sorrow, so you guys can be together. That was a little bit quick, but I mean, some of the stuff leading up to it back in the 1960s kind of era with Benny and Cassie and whatever Kira's name was, Kay, I think. I mean, I liked that a lot of those conversations took place in that time period, so that at least there was some sort of, I guess, connection back to the series and his time with the prophets and this interpretation of being with the prophets. Yeah, I do. I'll cave, I guess, and say, yeah, it was a bit of a cop out, I think, to just kind of be like, oh yeah, the sorrow thing. Yeah, we're done with that now. You can move on. And I still don't mind completely, because he is still half prophet. Like, I don't mind him not being the emissary anymore. I would just, I guess I still wish that the prophets would still like commune with him or whatever. And like you said, like kind of explain some of what was going on, or even if some of his memories came back from that, because he even says like, I don't really remember anything about my time with the prophets. And like you said, what was the point then? Like, how long were you gone? I don't know. Time is meaningless.
It seems so much less a river of dreams and more of a river of convenience. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's really frustrating, because I feel like I'm going to use an example, and people may hate it, but it seems very much familiar to me in the sense of the way that some directors have dealt with another franchise, and that they didn't necessarily like the direction that one director was going, so they just basically shut the door on that. And that's kind of what I'm getting here. It's like, it feels like there's a direction that David doesn't want to have to walk down anymore, and he's shutting the door on that, so we don't have to worry about writing, Sisko and the Prophets. We don't have to worry about coming up with anything in that direction anymore. We'll give that direction to Kira now, and I mean, I guess it bothers me, because that still seems like that should be a role that Sisko has.
Yeah, but I mean, in defense of what David wrote here, I can understand, and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, we're in this novel verse, we're beyond the TV series, where are we going to take things? And instead of it just being a continuous DS9, Emissary, on and on and on for years, we're getting a new space station. And, it's, let's move forward with Sisko, and he's not the emissary anymore. Let's like switch it all up, and Kira's the hand of the prop. I can see where it's like, okay, we're mixing it up. We're beyond that. Those stories have been told. Let's do something different. So I get that. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed all the things in this book, except there that ending. Well, it's not that I didn't like the ending part, but I did feel it was a bit weak. Like Casey, you were saying, a little bit rushed, or just seemed like just really safe to, okay, we're just going to get Sisko back together with Cassidy, and the sorrow thing's over and all that other stuff, and we're good to go. And that was that was my only, I guess, complaint about the book.
Yeah, they could have almost just said something like that, like the prophets, if they came in and they were like, oh, well, the sorrow that you were going to know was this other thing that happened, or, just even tie it into something else that's happened in his life, and just be like, and, because time is meaningless to us, we thought that that was going to last forever, and so but now that that's past, and we understand what the past is because of your time with us or something. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could have done something timey-wimey like that, where like it was Jennifer's death or something. You could even gone in that direction. So
what happened with Vaughn? I know we're going to talk about this later, but what happened with Vaughn at the end? It would have been cool if that was Sisko in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, gosh, there's so many possibilities here, and so where we do end up with Sisko, though, I think another frustration that I have, and I've talked quite a bit about with Sisko, that I think the perfect opportunity is here to, they're building the new Deep Space Nine. Bruce, like you mentioned, our last show, the idea of like having, 2 stations or anything. But I think the perfect opportunity to kind of use this as a way to organically bring back a lot of the characters of Deep Space Nine to Deep Space Nine so it feels more like the series again. Make him an admiral and make his station Deep Space Nine. I mean, we've already sent him on missions around this area in this book because he knows this area of space best, and he has great relationships with everyone, you know? And so why would he not be the admiral of this sector of space? And, you know, you could have, you know, the Defiant, the Robinson or whatever, basically, you know, be his ship or whatnot, or something like that. I just don't understand. He's already been offered the admiralcy once in these two books, and he turned it down, but this seems like a perfect place for them to say, hey, we're building a new Deep Space Nine, and what we really want is for you to be here. And that way, you know, the family gets to stay together. They still can keep the house on Bajor, you know, and you know, Cisco, even if they wanted to do that, you could commute to work every day. You know, I just like, I mean, and they even have the temporary base that they built on, you know, the planet. So it just feels like there's so many opportunities here to kind of like put this crew back together a little bit more, so that the book series moving forward would feel more like the series in the way that the TNG books have. And they just missed that opportunity here. And in all honesty, Deep Space Nine will never feel like Deep Space Nine again.
Well, that's the thing. Future books, even with these books, to me, it could say DS9 on the cover, but when I would read these, I never thought of it as really being Deep Space Nine. It was just a story taking place in the Star Trek universe. And one book so happens to take place on the news station. Another book takes place on the Robinson. Another book, what was it? There was something like, like, you know, with Garrick, you know, it's taking place on Cardassian. Like, they all kind of been separated out. I mean, in some ways, this solves the criticism that I've often felt about the original series when it went to movies and the same crews together for practically 30 years. And it's like, haven't they moved on? And here they've moved on, but we're not given what we want, which is them all together. Right. You know, so it's like, which way do you go? And
this allows them to come back together and be there for more legitimate reasons, you know, like, you know, And not everybody would be back together, you know. This could be something where, you know, again, O'Brien may be there for a while. He might not be there for, you know, the rest of his life, kind of thing. But it just feels like, at least with the character of Benjamin Sisko, having him there, making him an admiral, you still get to keep Ro. And you get to have more of these connections with these characters, and it make more sense. And there's still plenty of storytelling opportunities, I think, you know. I mean, so anyway, I don't know. I've gone on long enough.
Yeah, I think too, like, just, you know, bringing those characters back. I mean, one of the big things about Deep Space Nine that I think a lot of us like is the character development that we get and the character stories. But it's not just the individual characters, like, you know, breaking them up, you know, having Sisko on his own ship with nobody else there, or, you know, even Bashir going off into Section 31, or, you know, O'Brien, or wherever he is, you know, on any given day. It's the interactions with the two of them. I mean, in this book, I really enjoyed kind of the reunion of Bashir and O'Brien.
Yes.
You know, like that was really cool to see. It was a very short scene. It really did nothing for the story, but it was really fun to see that. And I think, you know, seeing more of those interactions and having all these new characters in too would be great. But yeah, like having Sisko kind of at the top there. But yeah, like, I guess kind of the way these stories have been going it does feel a little bit like he, or, you know, whoever the authors that are writing Deep Space Nine are not really sure what to do with Sisko. And like you said, Matthew, like it's kind of like they just wanted to get rid of what was being done before and let's go somewhere else completely.
Yeah, and I mean, in the end, it's the hardest part of, like, bringing him back in the first place, you know, and I do think it's one of those things to which, you know, the original relaunch series led up to Unity, And then after that, it did feel like they just didn't necessarily have a great plan for like, okay, so we bring him back. Like, what's the repercussions of that, and how does that look, and what does it look like, and all that kind of stuff. So, it's all in hindsight now since Coda 3 has just come out. And anyway,
it was all a dream.
Wanted to ask. Yeah, it was all. Yeah, life is but a dream. We have the big part of the story here, which we find out what the Typhon Pact plan was with the stealing of the components from the Dominion. And it's not just about the slipstream, it's about them working with the Way, the True Way, and creating an artificial wormhole that links with the Bajoran wormhole, and so that they can get back and forth from the Gamma Quadrant without having to go near Deep Space Nine. And I actually forgot about this part of the story, and I found this just such a fascinating idea of that creating artificial wormholes and how it's been so difficult, but they found this way to do it. And I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this, because to me, this was a really cool part of the story.
Oh, so you thought it was cool. Okay. See, I never know sometimes what you're going to say, because I thought it was cool too.
No, I thought that this was a really fascinating part of the story.
Yeah. No, I'm like you. I forgot about it until they started talking about it. I was like, oh, wait, I'm remembering this now. And I remember thinking this was pretty cool. I mean, what you just said, I thought it was great. I love the idea that it's an artificial wormhole that isn't just created that mirrors the Bajoran wormhole and it can do the same thing, right? We don't want it to be able to do the same thing. Like, they shouldn't have the technology to do what these prophets, these wormhole aliens, were able to do. But they're able to do something temporarily, something that kind of works, but you have to link it to the wormhole, the existing wormhole, and for it to work correctly, all that stuff. And creating, this red swirl in there, and it's like, something that's infecting the Bajoran wormhole. I thought that was all pretty cool and very inventive way of trying to sneak through and back. It created a lot of action, and I enjoyed it. It was good.
There's kind of a lot of intrigue leading up to it too, just because I didn't actually see this coming. I saw them, as they were building this or trying to build this wormhole, this artificial wormhole, and saying that it could only go like 5.4 light years or something like that, but that was like at the farthest out, but it was most stable in like the 3 light year range or something. And like, especially after Deep Space Nine was destroyed, my only thought was, well, how much is 3 light years really going to save them time wise, if they're going to have to get this close just to set it up. And so when they actually connected it to the Bajoran wormhole, I mean, my mind was kind of blown with that, because I was like, oh, this is genius. Like you said, they don't have to go through the Bajoran system. They can just go straight to the Gamma Quadrant from a different starting point. And it just created a lot of like suspense, and especially as the book went on and they were battling, essentially more or less inside the wormhole, thinking, crap, this is going to be, this could potentially be really bad, especially, Odo had said at one point that the Dominion had no interest in aligning with the Typhon Pact. They wanted to close their borders completely anyway, but you just never know, especially if they're going to take these phased cloak ships into the Gamma Quadrant, whatever, like they could destroy the Dominion from the inside and then have all this technology that the Dominion had. So, I mean, it created a lot of, suspense and possibilities there, even of like, oh gosh, where are they going to take this story? And, and just the way that the wormhole was described, as you said, like the red swirls. And then, I remember somebody, whoever it was that was looking, like Kira, I think maybe it was looking at, the wall of the Celestial Temple as it was like, infected, and, just this, big bruise or this mar on the side of it. And I mean, it was very descriptive. And I mean, I really felt like, I mean, I could picture it. I was right there inside the wormhole with everybody.
Yeah, and like the Benny Russell flashbacks, it's basically, that artificial wormhole is affecting the Hudson River. I mean, same thing, right? Now I never look at the Hudson River the same. I'm going to think it's the Bajoran wormhole. But I also like about this book compared to other Typhon Pack books is seeing the Typhon Pack actually doing something together and working towards something. It wasn't just one race of the Typhon Pack doing this. The Breen were working, the Zenkethi were working on it, the Romulan, like there was multiple that were involved in this whole plan. So I really appreciated that.
And it really connected all of the previous stories that went on, like these kind of standalone stories. It was really all actually very connected, which was really cool to see in this.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths, too, of this book in general is that, Bruce, when we talked about Plagues of Night, it just felt a little bit disjointed again, where we're just trying to connect all these different things, and we're trying to have all these different time periods and these storylines connect. And this book felt much more enjoyable in the sense that we do shift some time, but it's not quite as much. And this story feels much more linear in that sense, which I think it was to its benefit. And, I mean, we ended the first book in this series, Plagues of Night, with the destruction of Deep Space Nine. This one ends, though, with this false wormhole and the closing of the Bajoran wormhole for who knows how long. Like, I mean, two big, huge things happening in these novels, and that's another big plot point and another big thing to kind of take away from the Star Trek universe at this point.
Yeah, and as they've gone on too, it's interesting as the Typhon Pact has been trying to make the slipstream drive, and then Bashir and Serena go and they destroy the Breen facility, and all the plans get destroyed too. And then I think the one guy who has the plans kind of in his brain ends up dying at some point, and all these things keep happening. And this one ends very similar to that too, with this Zenkethi wormhole generator facility, whatever, being destroyed, and so it kind of almost closes the door on any of that story. Like if they had left that facility there, then I'd be sitting there wondering at the end of this book, okay, well, when are they going to get another wormhole back up? So the Bajoran wormhole's closed, but are they going to somehow, advance this technology even further to be able to make a longer wormhole and go anywhere they want?
I was very pleased when the Zenkethi facility was destroyed, because I didn't remember if it was or not. And when the wormhole was going down, I was like, oh gosh, I hope that we don't go back to this again. I don't recall happening. And then when it got destroyed, I'm like, okay, I'm very pleased with this. I'm very happy that it's gone. Good riddance. We won.
Yeah.
And for their own ship to do it too.
Yes, in their own ship. Exactly.
What did both of you think of this dramatic entrance that we get, where we have Camomore being smuggled to Earth to have and to kind of plead her case with President Bacco, as well as find a way to actually get more information about what's going on and to try and figure out what the next part of this plan is so that we can keep more people from dying.
I loved the lead up to that because, it was a very dramatic entrance. The ship just shows up in Federation space, or actually in orbit of Earth. And I was starting to think before Camomore showed up, or before Bacco went into our office and Camomore was there, I thought it was going to be Sela for some reason. I thought this was going to be some tragic thing that happens. But I was pleased by that, to show that Camomore isn't your typical Romulan. I guess she wants peace, and she had I think in the previous book tried to send a message to President Bacco, and it was a little kind of clunky message, it seemed like, and Bacco kind of just ignored it and didn't want to reach out to Camomore. And this really showed that she, as the Romulan leader, wants to wants to kind of, I guess, end all of the kind of bickering and, subterfuge and whatever, between the Romulans and the Federation and start a new relationship. And seems like even though she's kind of, a different type of Praetor, she is, one that wants to see change and maybe is seeing into the future that, the Romulan Empire is going to be a lot different if we don't change. It's something bad might happen. And so seeing her come and basically, she was practically on her knees with Baco, just kind of, begging her, like, let's make this work. And I really liked that.
What I like about the scene with these two together is that I love Baco. She's one of my favorite characters in the novels. And this is one time that I'm not rooting for her. I'm rooting for the Romulan. I'm rooting for Camomor because Camomor wants peace and Baco, of course, can't trust her. I understand that, but I want her to eventually realize that she can trust her and that, that Camomor wants to work with her and establish peace. And Camomor wants to get to the bottom of things, and she'll, test her own people. And I kept wanting Baco to, get it that, start to realize that Camomor has the best intentions, that we're working in the same direction. So I enjoyed having that flip happen for me, that I'm rooting for the Romulan, and I'm just hoping that Baco goes along with it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you both. I mean, I honestly can't add anything to what y'all said because I thought this storyline was fascinating. Like you said, Casey, I think the coolest thing here is to see the Romulan people and especially a Romulan leader take a different track, and try to chart a new course for themselves. They're not Romulans, but they're also looking to... And I think the thing about it is you finally got a leader to say, well, let's look at the history of the Federation and are they really a threat? She's like, yeah, they could be seen as being somewhat imperialistic. And I guess on the outside that might be the case, even though you don't have to join them. They're not forcing anybody to join them. So I don't know what that doesn't really make them imperialistic. But I thought that was just really nice. And again, I thought it was a great place where there's a good message in the sense that, like, yeah, we should be learning from history. Let's look at the history of what people do and see if we can find some way to move in a new direction. Can we trust these people? Can we not trust these people? And I thought that was really great. And I think it was in real contrast to some of the other Romulans that we see and other members of the Typhon Pact, where, I mean, like, we see Sela here or members of True Way on Cardassia being so sold out to the fact that they are inherently superior to other races. And, I find that fascinating. And Camomor doesn't believe that, right? She doesn't believe she's inherently superior just because she's Romulan. So there's this discussion of, the ideas that can lead to subjugation and racism. And I liked that here. But I also liked that it's finally being combated by a Romulan. The top Romulan now, and that this isn't going to be an easy road for her to be on or to get other Romulans to be on board with. But it's worth taking this track because it's going to be better for her people. It's going to be better for our people.
Yeah.
And
she's the first Romulan that we really know of that doesn't think like a Romulan. I mean, and even the Romulans have a problem with that, a lot of them, that she doesn't feel like a true Romulan because that's not how Romulans are always suspicious, but she's not, And so she's thinking like we do, and that's why we like her so much. But she's not really... She's a true Romulan, but in some ways she's not.
Yeah, because, I mean, she's suspicious, but she's cautiously optimistic almost, about the Federation. I mean, everyone, like Sela, Tomalak, everyone's coming to her saying, they've got the slipstream. They're going to equip all their ships with it, and they're going to come attack us. And she's got kind of the wherewithal to kind of stop and go, but they haven't. Like, if they could, why haven't they? And, you know, she's even looking further into history going, they could have attacked us a lot and they never did. Or, you know, like, and you get these Romulans who are, and even to some extent, yeah, the Cardassians in the true way, but like they're stuck in these like very old mindsets. Like, you know, with the Romulans, like probably thinking, oh, we had a war with Earth, you know, a couple hundred years ago. They're still probably bad or whatever, and just can't get out of that mindset. And then
war we started, by the way.
War, yes.
You know,
that's exactly. But yeah, and like, I mean, Camomore, I mean, she can be a true Romulan. Like there was a great scene with her and Tomalak in the holding cell where she essentially tricks him. She says, "I'll promise you freedom if you kind of spill everything you know on Sela or, you know, on the plan that the Typhon Pact has." And then she's not going to release him. Like, he's in Federation custody and he's going to face Federation penalties and or prosecution. And, you know, so she can play that game, but at the same time, it's to the end of peace, really. And so, I mean, I feel like she's kind of that first Romulan leader that we see, where you get that really that sense that, okay, we might be able to get there someday with the Romulans and have some allies. And then just kind of, you know, one thing that I just thought of on Sela too is that she, like, the characterization of her in these books has been great, of showing the kind of I don't know, dichotomy of her own personality, that she hates her human self. She hates looking in the mirror. She hates the blonde hair. She hates, you know, a lot of these human features about her, but she thinks like, she almost thinks like an Uber Romulan, you know, that she's got to take everything to the next level to prove her Romulanness.
She's overcompensating.
Exactly. she's overcompensating for her human, but which I think makes her even more dangerous, especially as the leader of the Tal Shiar in these books.
Well, and I think that's something that, you know, the Andorian that gets found out who planted the bombs, you know, I love the conversation he has with Bashir, because I think Bashir's rightly able to point out what the Federation did was not intentional. There is no intent there, and intent matters. And I thought that was a really interesting conversation, because I feel like, you know, we live in a world where intent doesn't matter to anyone anymore. And I love Bashir being able to point out the oversight that the Federation makes here is one that it's not as though anybody in the Federation knew about. Like, this stuff was buried so deeply that we didn't know about it. The reason we buried it is because, unlike the Tholians, this is something that we thought anybody should play with. And, you know, Bruce and we talked about the ramifications of that, but at the same time, it truly is something that is absolutely 100% dangerous. And you know, obviously that's what the Vanguard series was all about, was that type of danger that this information could cause. And so I really liked that conversation, and I thought, like, you know, it showed the way in which we can become so stuck in our own mindset, because it's the easiest way to think, is just to blame somebody else or to put it on somebody else, because we don't really feel like we have any other recourse other than, because then we'd have to look at ourselves too, right? So I really thought that was a strong part of that, and it tied in well with the other types of kind of speciesism that we were seeing from, you know, the Romulans and you know, the Cardassians and other members of the Typhon Pact, which is in direct dichotomy to people like Camomore or even Bako or, you know, Bashir, or these people that, you know, we're seeing stand for what is right. So
yeah, I enjoy that scene too, and you're right. It's what was the intention? You know, it wasn't ours. You know, the Federation. It's not our intention to deceive the Andorians and to prevent them from getting any of this information that would have helped them. It was something that was buried. It was something that people nowadays didn't know about. And so when we say we, the Federation, that includes Andorians. And that's the one thing I'd like to see more of if they were going to do some more books around this. And the fact that the Andorians really should be mad at some of their own people who served on the Council of the Federation, because it's not Federation versus Andorians. Andorians are the Federation. Why didn't the Andorians themselves know? And if they didn't know, why do they expect others in the Federation to know about it? Mm-hmm. And so really there should be a lot of Andorians who are going after the heads of other Andorians who served in the Council of Federation for not exposing us or not knowing it. And why didn't you know it? Or did you know it and not tell us? Are you working against us? There's a whole complexity you could put in there. But the intention, like you're saying, like nowadays, it doesn't matter what the intent is. It's just what the perception is. It's like, you know, what do I want to perceive that may be the reason this happened and not really what the intention was.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, yeah, gosh, I do feel like that's something that, you know, just thematically we could probably have a whole podcast talking about. But I do want to move us to the fact that we're going to get a new station. And that Nog and O'Brien are going to be creating a brand new Deep Space Nine. So, I mean, especially going back and thinking about rereading this, or even just reading it for the first time, how did you guys feel about the idea of like, oh yeah, we blew it up, now we're going to get a new one? Kind of like, you know, oh, it's a new Enterprise, there's plenty of letters left in the alphabet.
Yeah, this being, I mean, my first time reading it, you know, we talked before the show, I don't mind hearing spoilers and everything, so I totally knew that there was a new station coming anyway, but it happens very fast. And I mean, they address it in the book too, about how quickly this got passed and how some people are even surprised by it. I was really happy to see O'Brien when he showed up, and he is the most important person in Starfleet, as we know from Lower Decks. And so for him to design the new station just seems totally appropriate. And I mean, he spent, 7 years as the chief engineer of the previous Deep Space Nine, which they make. They mentioned quite a few times that wasn't even meant to be, a spaceport. It was meant to be an ore processing facility. And so, imagine what O'Brien, if he was able to turn that into a spaceport, imagine what he could do with one that's actually built with Federation technology and, state of the art technology. And I thought that was just super cool. And then to have Nog come back, I thought it was weird when he was, I think he was indistinguishable from Magic on the Challenger, which I don't know. That one, he always felt out of place in that story to me. So having him come back here again, it just kind of felt like,
out of place, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
The authors were told to ignore that novel going forward.
Yes. Well, yeah, I do like though how David R. George was able to bring in at least the mention that he was in, and even like whatever retconning that was done with Geordi and how he was not captain of engineering anymore, but they kind of just undid that whole story, which was fine. But yeah, having Nog come back, and then especially having him working directly with O'Brien on doing this. And obviously there's going to be other, engineers involved with this. It's not like these two guys are going to like design the whole thing themselves, but having them so prominent in it is great. And then, hopefully seeing O'Brien as the chief engineer of this new station would be great. Or Nog. Yes.
Well, to be honest, when the series Deep Space Nine premiered, I didn't like the fact that the space station was a Cardassian space station. I wanted to see a Federation space station. And yes, where the Federation and the Bajorans are working as a Federation Bajoran space station, but I know that it's a Cardassian-built station that also used Bajorans, for the most part, as slaves to build it. But, I mean, I grew to love the station, of course. But now that it's destroyed, I like the idea of building a Federation station, because that's what I wanted all along. So I was always excited to get this new station. I will say, though, I love seeing O'Brien and Nog back, but I think I would have liked it if it was positioned more as a Bajoran designed and built space station, because the Bajorans were enslaved to build a Cardassian station, and now it's their turn to build their own space station. And maybe with the help of O'Brien and Nog. I would like to see them take the lead, because it's them claiming their space back.
Yeah, like a little bit of redemption really for the Bajoran people in that respect, and having, for 7 years, the Deep Space Nine, this Cardassian designed station, was the kind of first thing that any new folks in the area would see when they come into the Bajoran system. But yeah, I like that idea. I think that would be really cool to see, and actually kind of cool to see like what those kind of design elements would look like.
A lot of wind sails, solar sails.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it. It made sense. And obviously this section of space is going to be, really important with everything that's been going on. So the fact that they would immediately look to build a new station, I think makes a lot of sense. And so, I mean, and the idea of like you said, Bruce, of building a space station that is actually a Federation station and really kind of give us a design that harkens back to the original, but at the same time is going to be new and shiny and everything. Is really cool. Only thing I wish is that we only got vaguely from some rough drawings that they had done and things like that of what the internal look of the space station was. I mean, I just feel like they really missed an opportunity to really make this a big deal and maybe even create a whole website devoted to the new Deep Space Nine.
I always wanted that.
Yeah. So all of that would have been really cool.
Because
so
we got that with
breakdown.
Vanguard, right? Did we get a fold out of the Vanguard station in one of the novels? And Titan,
yep.
We got one of those. Yeah.
Yep. And here, though, too, you really needed a layout of what the station looked like and what it looked like internally, because there's so much to this new station when they talk about it. And you just kind of, there are many times when in upcoming books when I would feel lost a little bit as to where you were in the new station, because the old station, I knew exactly what everything looked like. This, I had no idea, and you had to describe it to me. And if you didn't do a great job of describing it to me, I was going to be... I wasn't going to be where you wanted me to be. I'd be more thinking about, oh, where is that? And, anyway, so...
well, it's kind of like, in the beginning of this book when people are stuck in the pieces of the docking ring, like Cassidy and Kira were found in that. Like, I know exactly, like I can see like a piece of the docking ring flying through space and see what the bulkheads would look like on either end. That's kind of saving their life. But yeah.
100%.
What's funny to me though, as reading this book and some of the previous books, when sometimes I have to remind myself it's the old Deep Space Nine, because I've gotten so used to thinking of the new one. I kept going, oh wait, we're on the original one. Yeah, I keep having to remind myself of that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the new station, you can go hang gliding. You can, like, there's all.
This is true.
You got enough room for
big,
that. It's a huge part.
Yeah. With one storyline we get here, we kind of continue with this whole idea: is she evil? With Serena, and if Bashir can really trust her. And I'm very interested to hear what both of you think about that, because I will be honest that rereading this, the story is just grating on me, and it keeps getting worse every book because I'm tired of the same questions, and I'm honestly kind of tired of characters like Bashir having nothing but sorrow. Like, if you want to talk about somebody who's had nothing but sorrow, it's Bashir. Can we just let the guy be? It's kind of like Worf in the books. Like, he could never be happy. We always have to kill his love interest. Can we just let these characters find some semblance of normalcy in their lives? And so that's where I am. I'm interested to hear where you guys are.
Matt, you miss that's where the book should have really went at the end, was the prophets tell Sisko, I'm sorry, we meant Bashir with the sorrow, not you. You're good.
We're so sorry for our bad. Time's wibbly wobbly. We just got that one a little bit wrong.
All you humans look alike, so we got it all confused. So anyway, but You know what? I like the whole Serena Bashir storyline, but you know what, Matt? I agree with you. It plays a little too long through the books is Serena somebody that can be trusted? Can he really believe that she loves him? Is she still with Section 31 or not? That question does go on for quite a while through many of the books. So it does get a bit tiring, but I do enjoy it. And I remember reading this book the first time and thinking, just like Bashir, I think she's on the good side, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think she is, So I was right there with him. And
I've never cared for the character of Serena too much anyways. And maybe this is why, and maybe I just haven't really put this together, over because I remember reading, I think it was Zero Sum Game that was the Bashir Serena story that that one actually took me a while to get through because I didn't really care for, I don't mind them being together. I wish she was just more like him in that we knew exactly where she stands. I mean, it almost seems like they tried to take some of Garrick's characteristics and put them on her. Is she a spy? Is she not a spy? Is she good? Is she bad?
That's a good point. I like that.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. And I mean, so I think, I would agree with you guys that, I mean, I haven't even read all the books that come after this. And, I'm kind of getting to the point where I'd like to know where she stands so that I can start caring about her or not, so I can pick a side. And it just, the stuff with them, I like the Bashir stories. I actually kind of like some of the Section 31 stuff, but with Serena in particular, I don't know. It's just kind of meh, I could take it or leave it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, another big thing is that we reintroduce Odo back into the series in the sense that we find out basically he's been running the Dominion pretty much by himself, since all the other founders and the Great Link is gone. And now he's stranded in the Alpha Quadrant after this, book. And so how did you feel about bringing him back into the fold?
It made sense, with, when they went into the Gamma Quadrant and, basically we're saying we need Odo when the Jem'Hadar and the Vorta show up and they're saying, okay, we need Odo. Do you know Odo? And, the Vorta's probably like, yeah, it's kind of the only founder I talk to anymore. But, so I think it was interesting. I'm actually really curious now where the founders have gone. We saw Lost show up, which that was pretty interesting, and seeing that he's still kind of his same kind of personality, but he's actually still he was at least working with Odo to some extent. But, now that he's actually stuck in the Alpha Quadrant, I would be really curious to see, okay, well then what's going on in the Gamma Quadrant? The Dominion has no leader right now. Is Lost going to take over? Are they going to become this big bad again? I'd really be curious to see where that's going to go. And that Odo's got to be thinking the same thing, crap, I'm stuck here and I was tenuously holding, the Dominion together and trying to get it on the right track. And that can't happen now. And I wonder if he can maybe transform himself into some space flying thing that can go faster, do his own slipstream and get to the Gamma Quadrant quickly. I don't know. Yeah,
and the Typhon pack would have been like, we should have just captured Odo and used him as a ship all along. Darn. But yeah, he's probably regretting he didn't pack more things because he didn't expect to be gone this long. But I do enjoy how it made sense that Sisko visits with Odo in the Gamma Quadrant to figure out why the Typhon pack is coming to the Dominion and what's going on there. And Odo being the one trying to solve problems and figure things out, the sleuth that he is, that he's, let me check what's going on. And that, leads to bringing him back to the Alpha Quadrant. And so when the wormhole goes away, then we've got Odo there, so we get to play with Odo in future stories. So it made sense that it worked that way. But there wasn't a whole lot of Odo in this book, so I don't have a lot to say about him. But it worked to get him back. I think that worked.
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of the things we talked about with Sisko and everything. It's well, you brought Odo back. It's you have this whole thing to organically have all these characters back together. And so, I mean, where his storyline goes will be very interesting, as especially Casey, you continue on with the books because you haven't read them yet. So, well, this book ends on another cliffhanger because Ellis Vaughn finally gives up the ghost, but he helps Kira escape the wormhole, and then she, along with the wormhole, disappears. And first, how did you guys feel about the fact that we finally wrap up what happened with Elias Vaughn, and then the fact that Kira's gone by the end of this book?
The Vaughn storyline with him just in a coma for a couple of years?
Forever.
Yeah, like that seemed cruel to me. And I know that his daughter was trying to come to terms with it herself. And I mean, that's not going to be an easy decision for anybody to aid in ending somebody's life, especially her father's. And they went about it. They're trying to go about it the most humane way possible, just taking him off various machines and realizing that his body was still surviving. And I almost wish that the character of Eli, I think it was Eli Armstrong or something like that, in the Prophet Vision in the 1960s New York, Harlem. I almost wish he would have shown up earlier so that we could maybe have gotten a little glimpse into the fact that he wasn't brain dead. He was just with the prophets. And I mean, and I did like in those scenes how Benny was the one that helped get Eli out of the police station, because that was a little bit reminiscent of how Vaughn had brought Cisco back from the Celestial Temple. And so then for Eli to help, or for Elias to help Kira in that way too, was I just thought it was kind of a poetic end. But then again, I guess too, I wonder, is he dead? I mean, it says he opened his eyes, closed them again, and then died. So I mean, I'm assuming he's like dead and not just with the prophets. But I feel like with the prophets, you just never know.
He's quite dead.
Yeah, he's not dead
He'll
yet.
be done in a minute.
This is why I want to read the books that follow, because I can't remember all the answers to these things. I'm like, yeah, what does happen after this with Vaughn and Kira and the wormhole? So I'm intrigued. I'll probably just go to Memory Beta and read it and go, oh yeah, that's right, that's what happened. But it's sad to me that I don't remember. That's what bothers me. But I mean,
I'm guessing he doesn't show up in Coda.
I don't know. I'm not saying, but it was. I liked it. Vaughn was always a favorite character of mine. Yeah, he was kept too long on the breather tube or whatever. But I like that we're transitioning something to Kira, though. Even though we've taken away from Ben, I like that we're transitioning something important to Kira, and I love those scenes in 1960s Harlem and Benny Russell and Kay, that whole thing. Those are really good. I really got into the storylines about Baco and and the Romulans, and then this whole thing with the Harlem scenes and what's going on with Kira and Vaughn. So all that was working really well for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big storyline that, doesn't, in some ways, get wrapped up with, Kira till Revelations and Dust. And so it's, and that starts off like a whole new, thing with her and the Bajorans and all that. So, yeah, I mean, it's a big storyline that definitely, I think it is the place where we've transferred all of the spiritual stuff onto Kira for Bajor and taken away basically from Ben. And, that's the choice that was made. It's not one I love, but I did like that, like you said, Casey, that the situation with Elias really plays out very similarly to what we got with Cisco coming back in the first place. So it felt like a nice bookend to all of that. And I think it ended up, going really well because of that. And so, I don't really have much to add because I think you both, said it so well with how that storyline plays out. So I guess to me, I'm interested in, as we've talked all through Raise the Dawn, what you guys would rate this book.
Yeah, like I said, when I read Rough Beasts of Empire, I was starting to question of whether I liked David R. George III much as an author, and then I was pleased when I read Plagues of Night and saw the story progressing as it did. And so once I got into Raise the Dawn, I was kind of excited. I kind of like, as soon as I finished Plagues of Night, I just got right into this one and just kept reading. And especially once I got to the last 25 or 30% of the book, I literally didn't put it down. I just like finished it all. And so, even with some of the, the stuff we talked about, especially the beginning with Cisco and how quickly some of that came to a close, I still think this is a solid five-star book. And I'd say 5 out of 5 destroyed Zenkethi wormhole generators for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think when I think back to Plagues of Night, I remember at the time feeling a bit disjointed, that it just didn't flow as well as I thought a lot of other books that David has written. But this one really felt like a David R. George III book to me. I was really into it. I was really feeling it. I could feel what the characters were going through. I could visualize everything. The pacing was just right. It's like everything was just flowing the way I like a book to flow. And even though I questioned the end of how we resolved things with Cisco, I did enjoy that was resolved and the way it was resolved. It just, as Casey said earlier, just maybe a little too quick, or I wanted more answers from the prophets as to why this whole sorrow thing was even mentioned to begin with. But everything from, a lot of it also felt very much like Articles of the Federation when we have politics involved. So I enjoyed that. Again, what little we had about Bashir and Serena, I enjoyed that, and getting Odo back and dealing with the Typhon pack and seeing them all work together on this artificial wormhole, all this. So for the most part, I enjoyed it all. I gave it on Goodreads 5 out of 5, but I'm going to give myself a little more room. It's not a perfect book for me yet, but it's close to it. So I'll say 9 out of 10 last breaths from Vaughn.
Nice. When I went back to look at the rating for this book when I finished it on Goodreads, it had been a 5. But, I think in retrospect, especially with all the things that we talked about, this book is probably the best of what we've gotten so far in this run from David R. George III. But it's still probably just a 4 out of 5 Rubicons for me. Because I think it's missing some places that, and we've talked extensively about them in the last few podcasts, where I feel like the storylines could have been accentuated and it could have easily have been a 5. But this was definitely the best of them that we've gotten so far, and it was nice to be back in this book. And I think this book does leave you in a more hopeful place for a lot of the characters, which is great, which is very un-Star Trek books in this time period, because I do honestly feel like that there's a turning point that happens with the Typhon Pack series as a whole, as we're about to close that out, in that things get much less happy. And, we're going to go into the fall series. We'll have the Cold Equation series. We'll have, a lot of other things. And so, yeah, things just get a lot less happy from here on out for a lot of characters. And so, yeah, but this definitely left us in a good place. So
the one I forgot, there's 2 things though I did want to mention that it just occurred to me. It's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is I'm glad Sela is gone, because I'm not a big Sela fan. To see her die makes me happy. Then the bad thing is that I was disappointed at the very end that when the Celestial Temple is gone, there didn't seem to be much sorrow from everybody else. I expect, what effect this had on the Bajorans, and Cisco didn't seem to be all that upset that the wormhole was gone, and everybody was just like, oh, the wormhole's gone. They really miss Kira, but they didn't seem to miss the wormhole. I just thought that was a little strange.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they're like, well, we'll still build the station here, and if we ever need to move it over to Bayshore, like if it really seems like the wormhole's never coming back, then we can move it, but we'll just do it here, and yeah, things are fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
fine. That was
fine.
kind of weird. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad we've reread these. We've got one more book left, and but, again, I want to go back and reread The Fall and all these other books that we've read before, because now I'm back into this.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to getting. I know. I think it's in The Fall where the extremely tragic thing happens to a favorite character, and but yes, Cold Equation. I'm actually in the DTI novels right now, but Cold Equation's like, I mean, hearing everybody talk about everything that's coming up just makes me like eager to read even more, and so yes, over the Christmas break, I will be reading, and
it's awesome.
Looking forward to that. So I'll have to report back when I know more.
Well, and I've been trying to think of a new series for us to cover, because very beginning of the year, we'll dive into what we get there with Brinkmanship, and then I've been thinking about doing maybe something like the New Earth series or something like that, where books that I've always kind of I mainly it's like I'm interested to possibly read some books that I've not read before, and to be able to discover those, which is always fun. So, but if people want to catch up with you, Casey, and see what else you've got going on these days, or just maybe talk to you about what you're reading in Star Trek books, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm all over social media. I'm not as active as I have been in the past, but I'm trying to get back in there more. But I'm on Facebook and the Babel Conference. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Goodreads, under the name Knitting Trekkie. And then also on a podcast called Mickey's Marvels, where we talk about everything under the Disney umbrella.
Oh, that's really great, Casey. And
nice.
I love it.
And then you can find me on Twitter at Admiral_Rex. That's Admiral with the underline Rex. And then I'm on the Positively Trek podcast with Dan Gunther. And on the Star Wars Report, actually on the latest episode, if you're hearing this as this just came out, I'm on the latest episode of the Star Wars Report. And of course, I'm always in the Babel Conference too.
And of course, you could find me all over the place on social media under the name MattRushing02, anywhere from Twitter to Vero to Instagram, all the places. You can also find me here on the network, on our whole other side of the network that doesn't have anything to do with Star Trek, but we covered all the other fandoms we love, and the 602 Club. Got the bonus shows there as well, with Snyder Cuts, as well as Assembling Avengers. And then, of course, you could find me here doing Warp 5 and the Orb. Warp 5 is about Star Trek Enterprise, and the Orb is about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And then over on the Nerd Party Network, you'll find me doing two shows. One is a completed show called Owlpost. Did that with Rhea Kaufman, as we talk about Harry Potter, and we went through every single chapter of that series. And then last but not least, doing Aggressive Negotiations with John Mills, as we talk about Star Wars every week. But thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, live long
and read on.
You call that light reading? To each his own, number one.